injectable albuterol with Mirabegron enhances the fat loss without the side effects, but Clenbuterol with Mirabegron, that's really enhanced fat loss. And I'm talking about 40 micrograms Clen and 150 milligrams Mirabegron. That seems to be the best adrenergic fat loss stack. All right, let's get started. So you guys are familiar with the tiers, so we don't need to remind you guys. We're going to group particular compounds based on their, let's say, their receptor affinity or overlapping effects. So let's get started with Clenbuterol, Albuterol, and Mirabegron. Dean has now finally got some experience with Mirabegron. Kurt, did you ever try it, or you haven't?
No.
Okay.
I have not.
Dean, take it away. Dean,
plenty of the other ones.
Yeah, Dean, take it away.
I guess it's the only thing that has changed beyond, like, obviously after the surgery, I put in the replacement GH that I was doing before, like the 4 I use. Other than that, the SLU. But with the Mirabegron, the biggest positive that I've taken away from it, like I said, and offline to this, was I sleep all night. I literally sleep from the minute I go to bed till the minute I wake up. No longer have any form of like nocturia, waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. Quite often I'd wake up 3:30, 4 a.m. and I get up anyway about 5:30 a.m. anyway. So normally I'd go to the bathroom and then you go back to sleep for a quick nap. Now I literally just sleep all the way through until my alarm goes off, which is very strange for me. But like what you said, Steve, when you do wake up, it's almost like a never-ending flow where everything that's collected overnight has because your bladder, basically how it works is it slows down the contractile activity of your bladder.
It dilates the bladder, which is mostly beta 3 adrenergic receptor. So it literally allows you to hold twice as much urine. And then when you do go to the bathroom, you pee the 2 or 3 pees that you would otherwise have. So you wake up once, but you wake up way longer. So I'm not sure how much it affects the sleep quality overall, but even during the day, I've not, like, because the ones I got from a lipolysis perspective, I got sustained release, so that it's slowly going in rather than getting a big bang of beta 3 adrenergic receptor activation and then it's switching off. Sustained release is just slowly operating in the background towards lipolysis. So to me, that made a bit more sense. But what's
the half-life for the drug without the sustained?
I'm not too sure.
I think it's 54 hours.
Oh, it's long. It's longer than Clenbuterol.
Okay. Longer than Clenbuterol, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So in that regard, even sitting here in the office, I could go quite a period of time without having to leave. Like when you were trialing it and we were doing the podcast, you were just there was no need to take a break in the middle. It was all the way through. So that's one thing that I found of it. From a lipolysis perspective, I've gone from 91 kilos down to just under 87 in those 2 weeks. Obviously some of it's going to be water fluid loss from reduction in carbohydrate, but visually I've basically lost quite a chunk of fat in and around my abdomen, like to get back to having relaxed abs as opposed to before they were blurred, to speak. So definitely there has been a big shift in fat loss since last week. And I can only speak positive towards it. There's been no increase in resting heart rate like what would come with Clenbuterol. There's been no impact to my HRV, the sleep improving from being able to stay asleep but no nocturia. Just see positives from it, to be honest.
Did you notice that your skin texture improved, like you see with Clenbuterol and Albuterol, where your skin gets a little bit better texture?
So one thing that I've noticed, and maybe this is just a consequence of running the healing peptides, my skin is a lot drier. So obviously my skin is probably replicating a lot quicker.
Same here.
I didn't.
Exactly the same here.
Yeah. And that was, I have an elbow injury that the rest has done really well. But when Morgan was treating me, she was like, the amount of dead skin that's coming off as I'm massaging you. And obviously that's just because of the cellular turnover of the skin. Yeah. That's the only thing I've observed. I can't really put it down to the Mirabegron as opposed to the peptides and the healing and overall nature. But as a replacement to Clenbuterol, obviously Clenbuterol has the added effect that the shaking, that like increase in NEAT adds more calorie expenditure, and once the shaking wears off, then, you know, it loses the effectivity of being a neat inducer, but it still has the lipolytic effects. You could still run probably Clenbuterol with Mirabegron. Both of them would work in synergy. Would I do both of them together? Probably not. The heart rate, the impact on heart rate is definitely a big positive. And the fact that you're not having any of the cramping or dehydration or headaches. I know in the past, Clenbuterol, I always had what I call a breaking in period where for at least 48 hours I'd have a headache from Clenbuterol's effects. And that was just from trying to get used to the dehydrating aspect of it. So just keep myself hydrated, and eventually you'd get used to that headache to speak, or the headache's not an impact anymore because the homeostasis has been achieved. But Clenbuterol for me, normally if I was going to use it, it would be, you know, starting at a weekend where I know that if I get headaches or I feel a bit off from it, by the time Monday, Tuesday comes around, it's wore off.
Okay. Kurt, what do you think about Clen and Albuterol?
I've never personally used Albuterol, but I think Clen is a solid drug. I mean, Albuterol just has shorter half-life, right? Very similar drug.
Yeah, you need to dose
that's
it
kind of the
higher.
benefit of Clenbuterol is that it's going to last longer in the body. And the beta-3 doesn't downregulate, like you and I did that video, Dean, on in non-obese subjects. We don't see beta-3 downregulation. I think Clen's a great drug.
Yeah.
You know,
I think so too.
I think most guys probably use too much of it to try to get that neat out of it. Let's say, 40 micrograms is probably plenty for most guys, just for lipolytic effect.
In my research, when I compared Clen to Albuterol to Mirabegron, I found that from 40 micrograms Clenbuterol onwards, it starts to spill over into the beta-3. Yep. And for 4 milligrams Albuterol, the same things happened, but it also spills over into the beta-1 of the heart. So that's why when you take higher dosages of Albuterol, you get an increased heart rate.
Yeah.
Whereas at lower dosages, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, which I'd prefer to take a lower dose. Yeah. Just let it do its thing.
So I really like injectable Albuterol. That's found in the injectable pre-workout formula. It gives you some sort of like clarity during the workout, especially when you're a little bit down. So it acts as a little bit as a pick-me-up. Now, I've used plenty of Albuterol and salbutamol when I still had asthma in the form of an inhaler. So I'm well aware, like you take 100 micrograms per puff. Of course, you don't get any fat loss from that. But when you start taking the tablets or the injectable version, it's a significant difference. So I combined Clenbuterol with Mirabegron and Albuterol with Mirabegron. I would say that injectable Albuterol with Mirabegron enhances the fat loss without the side effects. But Clenbuterol with Mirabegron, that's really enhanced fat loss. And I'm talking about 40 micrograms Clen and 150 milligrams Mirabegron. That seems to be the best adrenergic fat loss stack in that context. So I like all three. Personally, going forward, I would limit it to Albuterol and Mirabegron because I feel that Mirabegron is a suitable replacement for Clen. But it's 10 times the price and almost impossible to source.
Clen is easy to find.
Clen is everywhere. If you have a steroid dealer, then you have a Clen dealer. It's just on every product list. So I'm going to put all three in S tier because they're great fat burners. And then it's just up to personal preference, I would say. Everybody agrees?
Yep.
All right. Cool.